The disguise. Lucas Martins was a man who had built an empire from the ground up. His restaurant chain, Martin's Eatery, was renowned for its impeccable service and quality. Yet, despite his success, Lucas was not one to rest on his laurels. When complaints began to surface about one of his locations, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He wasn't the type to delegate problems. He wanted to see them firsthand. To avoid drawing attention, he chose to go undercover, disguising himself as a regular customer. On a cloudy afternoon, Lucas walked into the restaurant, dressed in simple, worn-out clothes. The rustic decor had potential, but it was clear the place needed more care. The tables were misaligned, and the floor begged for a sweep. Before he could observe further, he was greeted by Clara, a young waitress with a warm smile and a welcoming demeanor. Despite being visibly overwhelmed, she exuded a kindness that immediately caught his attention. "Welcome. Just one today?" Clara asked, her voice cheerful despite the chaos around her. "Yes, just one," Lucas replied, returning her smile. Clara led him to a table by the window, where he could observe the restaurant's operations. As she hurried off to attend to other customers, Lucas couldn't help but notice her tireless efforts. She moved with efficiency and agility, clearly compensating for the lack of staff. Even with visible signs of exhaustion, she made a point to check on every customer, ensuring they were satisfied. Lucas ordered a simple dish and used the waiting time to analyze the service and dynamics of the place. The food arrived promptly, and though Clara was clearly rushed, she took a moment to ask if everything was to his liking. "Everything's great, thank you," Lucas replied, genuinely impressed by her dedication. As he ate, Lucas couldn't ignore the tension in the environment. A stern-looking manager barked orders at Clara without a hint of recognition or encouragement. Despite this, Clara carried on with unwavering professionalism. It was clear to Lucas that she was the backbone of the restaurant, holding everything together despite the challenges. When Lucas left the restaurant that day, he was certain of one thing: Clara was the pillar holding that place together. But he needed to dig deeper to fully understand the issues plaguing the location. Determined, he promised himself he would return and find solutions, starting with learning more about the humble and dedicated waitress who had impressed him so much. Clara's world. Clara had always believed that life was full of ups and downs, but in recent years, it seemed like the downs had piled up too high. At 28 years old, she was a single mother to two adorable twin boys, Joel and Miguel, who were just 4 years old. When she discovered she was pregnant, she had hoped her boyfriend would stand by her, but reality hit hard. He left as soon as he found out, running from responsibility without looking back. Since then, Clara had devoted herself to her children. They were her greatest joy and strength, giving her the determination to face each day. Often, she wondered if life would ever get easier, but she quickly reminded herself that she wasn't alone. She had her boys, and that was more than enough for her. Clara started working at the restaurant to make ends meet. Her daily routine was a whirlwind. Early in the morning, she dropped her boys off at the neighborhood daycare and rushed to catch the bus to work. The pay wasn't much, but she did everything she could to give her children the best life possible. At work, Clara was known for her kindness and the way she treated every customer who walked through the door. To her, each guest was special, and she made a point to greet everyone with the same sincere smile. Perhaps that's why many regular customers always asked to sit in her section. It made a difference to feel genuinely cared for by someone who seemed truly invested in providing excellent service. Even so, her days at the restaurant were challenging. The staff was short-handed, and the manager, Roberto, didn't make things any easier. He was always on her case, criticizing minor details and never acknowledging her hard work. Clara, however, chose not to let it bring her down. Deep inside, she held on to the hope that her dedication would be recognized someday. Lucas's observations. From his very first visit, Lucas had been closely observing everything in the restaurant. In his disguise as an ordinary customer, He went unnoticed, but he grew increasingly fascinated by Clara's work ethic. It was clear that despite the difficulties, she maintained an exemplary attitude, and it was impossible to ignore the positive energy she brought to the room, even amid daily challenges. One day, Lucas witnessed a situation where another customer complained, seemingly without reason. Clara handled the complaint with the calmest and most professional demeanor Lucas had ever seen. With a smile, she patiently listened to the customer and did her best to resolve the issue. Lucas knew it wasn't easy to remain composed in such situations, but Clara made it seem effortless. Every visit left Lucas more intrigued. How could someone stay so focused and kind in such a demanding environment? Then it dawned on him. There was more to Clara than he had imagined. For her, it wasn't just a job, it was a mission. Through every small act of kindness and focus, Clara seemed to be trying to make the world a better place, even if it was only within the small space of the restaurant. That's what kept Lucas coming back. There was something about Clara that inspired him, a kind of spark that wasn't often seen. He wasn't yet sure what to do with these observations, but he knew that Clara would have to be a vital part of the solution he envisioned for the restaurant. He had begun to see her not just as an exemplary employee, but as a model of resilience and kindness in a world that often seemed indifferent. What turning point? Days went by, and Lucas continued visiting the restaurant in disguise, growing more impressed by Clara with each visit. But one day, the atmosphere was different. The restaurant was bustling, with tables occupied in every corner. Clara was rushing back and forth, trying to serve everyone with her usual warmth. From his usual table, Lucas watched her every move with concern. He knew that when the kitchen was swamped with orders, Clara needed support, but it was clear that support wouldn't come from the manager. That's when Roberto, the manager, stepped in. His very demeanor gave away the kind of person he was, confident, perhaps too much so, as if always on the lookout for someone to blame for his frustrations. Lucas felt the tension in the air as Roberto approached Clara. "Faster, Clara. That VIP table is complaining again," Roberto barked, his aggressive tone drawing surprised glances from nearby customers. "I'm doing my best, Roberto." "The kitchen is swamped," Clara began, but he cut her off, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your best isn't good enough. The rich customers are the reason this place stays open. If you can't handle them, maybe you should find another job," Roberto said, his cold eyes locked on hers. Clara tried to stay composed, but Lucas could see the hurt in her eyes. She hesitated, searching for the right words, but Roberto continued his tirade. "And don't forget, treating regular customers well is just a detail. What matters is the money they bring in. Now, do your job right, or you know the consequences." His words cut Clara like a knife. "Yes, sir. I'll do my best," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Clearly, she was fighting back tears. Lucas couldn't bear to watch any longer. A knot formed in his stomach as he saw Clara's pain. It was as if the injustice was screaming in his ears. "Roberto, that's not fair," Lucas said loudly, standing up from his table. Even he was surprised by his boldness. What would he do now? Reveal his identity or keep up his disguise? Roberto turned to Lucas with the expression of someone who disliked being interrupted by customers. "And you are?" he asked, his tone sarcastic and dismissive. "Just a customer, but I can't sit here and watch you treat an employee with such disrespect. She deserves better than this," Lucas said, feeling his words barely scratch the surface of what he wanted to say. Clara looked at Lucas, surprised and nervous. "You don't have to," she began, but Lucas silenced her with a gesture. "Sorry, Clara. I can't stay quiet," he said firmly. Roberto looked between Clara and Lucas, as if assessing whether the situation was worth his attention. "Listen, buddy, things run according to my rules here. If you don't like it, you're free to leave. But Clara needs to learn to prioritize the customers who really matter," Roberto said, his arrogance evident. A wave of anger surged through Lucas. "Do you think a person's worth is measured by how much money they have?" he asked. "If you can't respect your staff, then you're the one who needs to reevaluate. Clara works hard to serve everyone, and she doesn't deserve to be treated like this." Clara, still visibly upset, felt a mix of gratitude and concern for Lucas. She didn't want him to be targeted by someone as aggressive as Roberto. "Please, don't argue for me," she said, placing a hand on his arm. "It's better to let it go." "No, Clara," Lucas said, determined. "It's time someone stood up." Roberto, however, wasn't willing to let the matter go. "If you have a problem, you're welcome to leave and not come back. We don't need customers meddling in our business," Roberto said, crossing his arms in a defiant stance. Lucas took a deep breath, aware that he was in a tough spot. He wanted to help Clara, but it was clear that any move he made could escalate the situation. Keeping his gaze steady, he replied, "You know, Roberto, I might leave, but not without saying that you're the reason this restaurant might be losing customers. One day, someone will need to look in the mirror and ask why the staff are always unhappy." Roberto frowned, but Lucas didn't waver. He turned to Clara, who still looked visibly shaken. "Clara, please remember how much your dedication means to everyone here. Your work is valuable. Don't let him make you feel otherwise." Roberto was losing patience. "Enough. You're not here to lecture us. If you don't like my rules, you're more than welcome to leave the restaurant," he snapped. "Maybe I should," Lucas said, starting to walk away. He could feel his frustration building. In front of him stood a woman struggling to do her job, and he couldn't just stay silent. "But I'm not the only one who sees this. Customers who feel mistreated will notice, and when they leave, that's on you." Clara didn't know where to look. She felt torn between worrying about the situation and feeling grateful for Lucas standing up for her. "Lucas, you might get yourself into trouble here," she whispered anxiously. "He can be very spiteful." "Maybe it's time for things to change, Clara. You deserve to work in a place where you're treated with respect and dignity. No one should have to endure what you've been through," Lucas assured her, his eyes still locked on Roberto. "That's enough talking," Roberto shouted, completely losing his composure. "If you don't leave right now, I'll call security." Lucas took another deep breath, realizing the situation was spinning out of control. He gave Clara a look of understanding, sensing her growing concern about both the potential call to security and the risk to her job. "It's okay, Clara. I'll leave, but know this, I won't be intimidated by someone like you, Roberto. What you're doing here is shameful, and if you have any dignity, you'll reflect on it before it's too late," Lucas said before walking out. As he left, he felt a mix of relief and frustration. A part of him wished he could have done more, stood up even more firmly for Clara, but he knew that what he had done was at least a start. Back inside, Clara stood still, her heart racing. She longed for a sense of safety, but the scene had sparked something inside her. Lucas's words made her think more deeply about her situation. How much longer could she endure such humiliation? She knew she needed to take action. This wouldn't be the last time Lucas visited the restaurant. He couldn't walk away from the confrontation he had started. He had to find a way to help Clara, not just as a customer, but as someone committed to making the changes the place so desperately needed. The new beginning. The days following Roberto's dismissal were filled with a mix of tension and hope. The restaurant staff, still reeling from the sudden change, looked to Clara for guidance. Though she had been offered the manager position, Clara felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her shoulders. She had never seen herself as a leader, and the thought of stepping into such a role was both exhilarating and terrifying. Lucas, now openly revealed as the owner, made it a point to be present at the restaurant every day. He knew the transition wouldn't be easy, and he wanted to ensure that Clara felt supported. On her first official day as manager, Lucas arrived early, finding Clara already in the kitchen, organizing supplies and reviewing the day's schedule. "Good morning, Clara," Lucas greeted, his voice warm and encouraging. Clara looked up, startled. "Oh, Lucas. Good morning. I didn't expect you here so early. I wanted to be here for your first day," he said, leaning against the counter. "How are you feeling?" Clara hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the clipboard she held. "Honestly, I'm nervous. I've never done anything like this before. What if I mess up? What if I can't handle it?" Lucas smiled gently. "Clara, you've been handling more than anyone realizes for a long time. This is just a new chapter, and you're not alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way." His words brought her a small measure of comfort, but the doubt still lingered. "I just don't want to let anyone down," she admitted. "You won't," Lucas assured her. "The fact that you care so much already makes you a great leader. Now let's get through today together, one step at a time." The first challenge. The morning rush began, and Clara found herself thrown into the deep end. Orders were coming in fast, and the kitchen staff struggled to keep up. Clara, still adjusting to her new role, tried to balance overseeing the operations while stepping in to help wherever she could. She refilled drinks, cleared tables, and even helped plate dishes when the kitchen fell behind. Lucas watched from a distance, impressed by her ability to multitask. He could see the strain on her face, but she never faltered. When a customer complained about a delayed order, Clara handled it with the same patience and professionalism she had always shown. "I'm so sorry for the wait," she said, offering a sincere smile. "Let me check on your order and make sure it's taken care of right away." The customer, initially frustrated, softened at her genuine apology. "Thank you. I appreciate it." Clara hurried to the kitchen, where she found the staff overwhelmed. "We need to prioritize this table," she instructed calmly. "Let's get their order out next." The staff nodded, and within minutes, the dish was ready. Clara personally delivered it to the table, ensuring the customer was satisfied. As she walked back to the kitchen, Lucas approached her. "You handled that perfectly," he said, his admiration evident. Clara sighed, wiping her forehead. "I just hope I can keep up. It's a lot to manage." "You're doing great," Lucas reassured her. "And remember, you don't have to do it all alone. Delegate when you need to. That's what your team is here for." Clara nodded, taking his advice to heart. As the day progressed, she began to find her rhythm. She assigned tasks to the staff, communicated clearly with the kitchen, and made sure every customer felt valued. By the end of the shift, the restaurant had run more smoothly than it had in months. A growing bond. Over the next few weeks, Clara and Lucas spent more time together, working side by side to transform the restaurant. Their partnership grew stronger, and Clara began to see Lucas in a new light. He wasn't just her boss. He was someone who genuinely cared about her and the team. His dedication to creating a positive work environment inspired her, and she found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't expected. One evening, after a particularly long day, Lucas invited Clara to stay behind for a cup of coffee. They sat at a corner table, the restaurant quiet and empty around them. "You've really stepped into this role, Clara," Lucas said, sipping his coffee. "I'm proud of you." Clara smiled, her cheeks flushing. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without your support." "You're stronger than you think," Lucas replied. "And I'm not just talking about work. You've been through so much, yet you keep pushing forward. That's something to be proud of." Clara looked down at her hands, her smile fading slightly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough. For the restaurant, for my boys. It's hard not to feel like I'm falling short." Lucas reached across the table, placing a hand over hers. "You're not falling short, Clara. You're doing the best you can, and that's more than enough. Your boys are lucky to have you." His touch sent a warmth through her, and for the first time in a long while, Clara felt seen. "Thank you, Lucas. That means a lot." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared struggles and triumphs hanging in the air. Clara felt a connection forming between them, one that went beyond their professional relationship. She wasn't sure where it would lead, but for now, she was content to let it grow. A new vision, As the weeks turned into months, the restaurant began to thrive under Clara's leadership. The staff, inspired by her dedication, worked together as a cohesive team. Customers noticed the change too, and word spread about the improved service and atmosphere. Lucas, seeing the positive impact Clara had made, began to share his vision for the future with her. "I've been thinking," he said one day as they reviewed the restaurant's financial reports. "What if we expanded, opened more locations with you overseeing them?" Clara's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? Oversee multiple locations? Lucas, I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You're more than ready," Lucas insisted. "You've proven that you have what it takes to lead. And I believe in you, Clara. Together, we can build something incredible." Clara felt a surge of excitement at the idea, but it was tempered by her lingering self-doubt. "I don't want to let you down," she admitted. "You won't," Lucas said firmly. "And even if we hit obstacles along the way, we'll face them together. That's what partners do." The word partners lingered in Clara's mind, filling her with a sense of possibility. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to dream, not just for her boys, but for herself. A moment of truth. One evening, as they closed up the restaurant, Lucas turned to Clara with a serious expression. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. Clara's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" Lucas took a deep breath. "When I first came here undercover, it was because I wanted to understand what was really going on. But meeting you, it changed everything. You showed me what true strength and kindness look like. And over these past months, I've come to care about you more than I ever expected." Clara's breath caught in her throat. "Lucas, I'm not saying this to pressure you," he continued quickly. "I just want you to know how much you mean to me. And whatever happens, I'll always be here to support you." Clara felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Lucas, I care about you too, more than I realized. But this is all so new to me. I don't want to mess things up." "We'll take it one step at a time," Lucas said gently. "No pressure, no expectations, just us figuring it out together." Clara nodded, a smile breaking through her tears. Together, a brighter future. As the days turned into weeks, Clara and Lucas continued to work side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. The restaurant flourished, and Clara's confidence in her abilities grew. She began to see herself not just as a manager, but as a leader, a role model for her boys and her team. One evening, as they stood outside the restaurant, watching the sunset, Clara turned to Lucas. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" Lucas asked, his eyes filled with warmth. "For believing in me, for giving me a chance to be more than I thought I could be." Lucas smiled, taking her hand in his. "You did that yourself, Clara. I just gave you the opportunity. The rest was all you." Clara leaned into him, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that her dreams were within reach, not just for her boys, but for herself. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Clara knew that this was only the beginning. With Lucas by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that together they could build a future filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities.